about something that's very important to me. And when we go into these abandoned buildings, a lot of people do it for the whole ghost thing, but I've never done it for that reason. I've always done it for the historical purposes that these buildings create. And I feel like if in Miami, and especially after recently visiting New Orleans, I feel like if in Miami, we've lost that culture here. I feel like if in New Orleans, you can step through there and you'll see buildings from the 1700s, the 1800s, places that no longer exist. There's types of architecture and the way that they created these houses have been created with such beauty, and the way that it was done is nothing like it's done today. And to me, one of the reasons that I made this book was because a lot of these places get lost. Miami's history is constantly changing. It's evolving every single day. I was speaking to somebody today who said, yeah, but maybe that's a good thing. And I said, yeah, but then we never have history. We never have our culture. You'll go to New Orleans, right? And you'll see their culture and how much they appreciate it and how much pride they have in their architecture, in the certain types of architecture that they have. Whether it's like, I remember it was a balcony or a gallery, and every single tour explains that to you. You don't have that here. This is cookie cutter. This is so bland. So when I set out to do this, I felt that I was in another headspace, and I must say, I started this when I was like about 27. The year was 2004, and I was like in another world. But as time progressed, and I actually learned about the history of all these places, I started realizing that these places are important. These places are stories of people, of people that have lived here, of human beings that have been here, and that will never be seen again because they got bulldozed for another mall. Even something as simple as like the Pine Rocklands recently, which is just a bunch of trees, but it's becoming a Walmart, And that's important. I think that's important for our city. And the only thing that I ask is that people start viewing people like me, instead of as an urban explorer, as more of like, more like of a thug, because that's what we're called terrorists. We're called thugs. We're called, every single name in the book, And the way that I always saw it was, I'm a historian. I like finding these histories. I like documenting these places, because if it wasn't for me documenting these places, honestly, you'd never even know about them. Maybe one or two, because they're the famous ones, like Aerojet or Captain Burke's Castle, which was in the news. But how about all the other ones, Nobody would know about them. They'd go off into the ether, and nobody would ever know about them again. So that's what I feel like. I feel like I'm a historian, a quasi-historian of Miami. And I don't want to be called a thug anymore. I'm not a thug. I'm a woman, I'm a mother, I'm a professor, I'm a writer. I'm not a thug. I'm a person who's been documenting buildings in Miami for 15 years, And I think that we deserve that credit as much as anybody else, And so I'm going to read a small passage of basically my preface. Unless you guys want me to read one of the stories. But I think the preface is pretty important. I put, urban exploration is not a new phenomenon. In 1861, poet Walt Whitman was writing about the Brooklyn Standard and describes his visit to Brooklyn's recently abandoned Atlantic Avenue Tunnel, which was constructed in 1844. It was the first subway tunnel in the world. This is the well-documented time in history, if you do not count Philibert Aspart in 1793, who died exploring in the French catacombs, that a person admitted to exploring an urban environment for pleasure. He stated of the tunnel, "Dark is the grave, cold, damp, and silent. How beautiful look earth and heaven again, as we emerge from the gloom. It might not be unprofitable, now and then, to send us mortals, the dissatisfied ones at least, and that's a large proportion, into some tunnel for a several days journey. We'd perhaps grumble less afterwards at God's handiwork." And then I wrote, may have been countless before them that have just never documented it. But urban exploration is part of humanity's history. Curiosity is an essential part of the human experience. Explorers in the past who dared venture into places that were deserted and alone may have sat and wondered what things might have lain beyond the silent walls of these locations. It is an innate curiosity, a historical perspective, a disregard for authority, an aesthetic of the beauty and the darkness, and a love for the silence that creates an urban explorer. Some enjoy the history, and others love the endorphin rush of fear. But almost everyone goes because these places are truly beautiful. The deterioration formed is a natural art. The way the cracks break the solid walls or the moss forms patterns, each flaw is part of nature's final artistic revenge against the concrete slab of solid rock that once stood. The earth always takes back what belongs to it, and it does in the most astounding way possible. There is a smell when places stay alone for too long. It is distinct from an area that has been lived in and continuously utilized. There is a wild, overgrown smell. It is a strong, but not offensive, and every abandoned location is different. But the base structure of the scent is the same. All that remains are the noises of nature, the drips of water on a piece of metal, a fan moving only when the wind is blowing in its favor, the rasping of a door by a rush of air, the sound of a creaking old floor when you walk on it. Each place has its own symphony of noises that make up its personality. There is a thrill in researching these locations and learning their secrets. Sometimes it's a bit of a puzzle to find information on a location. There is also a fascination with the darkness, the dangers, and the mysteries of these places. It is an adrenaline rush to find a place and go inside, but beware. You'd be going at your own personal risk. It is not for the careless, nor the foolish. It is not something to be taken lightly. I would never allow children or people that do not have an awareness of their surroundings to come with me, or those that cannot take responsibility for themselves. There are countless dangers in these places that you may not have thought about. And I'm writing this because I know that maybe somebody younger might look at this book and then think, oh, I'm going to So there are countless dangers in these places that you may not have thought about. Will someone see you, call the police, or harass you? Will you find someone inside who will hurt you? The reality is that these places are associated with vandals, drug addicts, and people who can steal from you, especially if you carry nice equipment. For women, it can mean horrible dangers. So go armed with legal weapons like mace. Are there toxic mold on the walls or chemicals in the air? We have found black mold and asbestos many times and have had to quickly uncover our mouths from the number of lethal spores or particles in the air. I have fallen right through an old floor, and if it were not for my friend Ivan pulling me up right before I got tired of holding myself up, I probably would have ended up paralyzed or maybe even died. Are there rusty nails when you're walking or strange spiders that can bite you? I have been a victim of both. The shots for tetanus are not fun, and neither is the black widow bite. There are so many dangers in abandoned places that taking precautions is not only smart, but it can save your life. There's always an imprint of people that walked in these places before. You can almost hear their stories, their memories, the conversations, and the moments that were lived. Oh, how wonderful it would be to capture them all, their essence of sounds, smells, and sights in a bottle. I have come to realize this project became something more significant than just my curious love of rundown architecture. I have become a makeshift quasi-historian of Florida. While I do include some locations that are relatively well known to a fair number of people, many are not, except to those who are there. That alone makes it essential for someone to go and document these locations. When an urban explorer documents these places and their stories, they help them stay alive. I have tried to get as much information on each site as I could. Some information was lost, but some I was able to find. I hope that you will see this as my contribution to the greater puzzle of Florida's story. I am a humble servant, here to give you the information I have learned so that you may enjoy it also. I have also tried to add my story so that you can see what I saw and how I came to know that these places existed. In these times, I have also added my personal opinion and my commentary from clues that I picked up when I was exploring, but realized that they are in no way solid facts. I tried to make this as clear as possible when I am writing. I tried to find as many first-hand accounts as I could, but many times it was very difficult because people were not very fond of talking to strangers who ask too many questions. I wanted to paint as full of a picture of these places as I could to try and take you to a time when they were being used. I wanted to give these places a voice that until now had none. So take my hand, dear reader, and let me lead you into the darkness. But remember, when wandering into dark, strange places, you will only find dark, strange things. And so I would love to take some questions, if anybody has questions for me. Anybody? If not, I can read another part of the book, which talks more about the urban exploration. Yeah? Yes?
What's the difference between the two books? Just different stories in each one?
Yes, so one is all government. So this one's all government.
Oh, okay.
And then the other one, so this is more like buildings and warehouses and things like that. And the other one is all the houses. If I were to pick a favorite, I would say it would be the second one because the houses are beautiful. Mm-hmm. And it's just like some of the places that I got to go to were really interesting. But the first one is interesting in the sense that these are places that have really important history. For example, the Nike missile site where the Cuban Missile Crisis happened. I also went to Aerojet. Did you know that Aerojet was actually part of the Apollo 11? It was supposed to be part of the Apollo 11 space mission, but it never got up it got up off the ground, but then it spilled all this stuff, and the people from Homestead complained, and so basically they had to stop it. And then liquid fuel won over solid rockets, and then and all this stuff like
Or those ghosts you were talking about, you don't do it for.
I know, right? Okay, so I'll do it for you guys, okay? Don't get upset.
They want to mention.
Yes.
Speak about the time when you the van and the guy when you were going to Aerojet.
Oh.
Tell them that story.
Okay, I could read that. Okay. That's like a small little excerpt, part of the Aerojet story. So this one's part of in my explorations. So strange things that happened at Aerojet. So Aerojet, you have to understand, I went to Aerojet 7 times during a couple of years, and every single once in a while, I'd go back and I'd take friends and whatever. And so this is called The Disappearing Man. It's a short story, but it's an interesting story. So the last time I went to Aerojet was in 2012, and we had to walk further than before. The gates were closed about 2 miles before the main entrance to the rocket with a brand new shiny big yellow bar and a white sign saying "No trespassing" in big red font. We jumped over the bar anyways and started walking down the long path to the rocket. We were about a mile past the buildings when we heard a car behind us, and we got nervous thinking that we were about to get arrested. But the white SUV with government plates passed us, and the man looked and he waved. Baffled but relieved, we waved back, but found it extremely strange. It took us a long time to get to where we were parked because he was driving and we were walking. We finally came upon the SUV, but we made nothing of it at first and kept walking about a mile of what was left to get to the rocket. But on our way back, the SUV was still parked, so we decided to be nosy and investigate. We peered inside the car windows. His clothes, which looked like basic black pants, white shirt, and a black tie outfit, were hanging on the inside. This led us to believe that he changed into something else. The problem is, we had absolutely no idea where he could have gone. All that there was on all sides for miles was just brown, burnt grass that was ankle high. I looked around, but nothing was sticking out from the ground. I tried again with my 200mm telephoto lens, and I still could not see anything that looked like an opening. I did catch a glimpse of one thing that looked like a silver pipe sticking out from the ground, about 6 inches, but that may have been a trick of my eye. At that point, my friend and I got really bad vibes and thought we might be in a little bit over our heads, so we started walking back to our car quickly. No idea where that man went to this day. I still wonder what is out there. I have researched and asked others, but no one has ever seen anyone out there driving on that road. Even if I wanted to go back now to investigate, it would be impossible because there was nothing to distinguish that specific area. The repetitive scenery, the lack of cell phone signal, and not having a GPS makes this a difficult mystery to solve. So basically it was like, you have to understand, when you're walking out there, and you look out there, there's just literally nothing for miles, you know? I believe there might just be like some underground base, you know? I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. But it was really creepy, you know, especially when you're out there and you're thinking to myself, you know, maybe we're going to get, you know, arrested, or, you know, you start nosing around some government stuff, we'll get in trouble. So we just decided to leave it alone. But it's one of those things that has always kept my mind, you know, turning. But yeah, that's the story of the disappearing man. The other one that I really love, at least in my eyes, is the story of Captain Burke's Castle. And that one is, I don't know if you guys remember Windjammer cruises. Yeah? There were like these cruises that you take, and it was like 250 people or less, and it was like all inclusive. And the gentleman was basically, he had bought this ship, and the ship was called the Phantom, which I found very interesting. And yes, Phantom, you know, and nothing else falls. And then, and then basically they got hit with this really nasty hurricane, and Hurricane Mitch went in, and they left some people on, I believe it was Bermuda, and then Captain Burke said, no, keep going. And he told a crew of 60-something people to keep going. So he left all the passengers, but he took all his crew, his captain, his everybody. And he got caught by the storm, and everybody disappeared. And the Phantom was never seen again. It's a very strange story. Yes.
When did this happen? What year?
It's like 1990.
It rings a bell.
Yeah, it was Hurricane Mitch.
Yeah.
And then he thought he was going to get arrested, because he was like, they're going to arrest me for this, because, you know, he's the one that sent the orders, you know? Do it. And basically,
Well, he got sued by all the family members.
He sure did, and that's how he lost his. Sorry, because you read the book. 1998. Yeah, Hurricane Mitch. I don't even remember Hurricane Mitch. I don't even remember it doing anything to us, to be honest. No, but it did something to that boat. I feel very sorry for those people. And I think that he was just trying to...
Lucky passenger.
Yeah. I think he was just being a little bit delusional, I think, at the moment, and he realized it afterwards, you know, that he was being hard-headed, he was being stubborn, you know. Yeah, he thought he could outrun it, and he didn't realize. And that storm at that time, when I read what I was researching, because there's a whole book on this, huge book that I read. He basically had spoken to the man, and he had told him, no, you could do this. You know, you're a great captain. You can go ahead and you can outrun this. And no, he couldn't. It was a very unpredictable storm. Constantly kept changing directions. It was very weird. It was one of those, like, you know, they almost have like a mind of their own. Yeah. So, any other questions? Yes.
Is there anywhere you didn't get to explore before it got demolished that you wish you could have?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes. And the reason that I didn't go here is because I already had this one, and I didn't want to get arrested. And there was major security everywhere all the time. The Miami Herald building. It was abandoned for a long time. God, I wish I could have gone there and taken pictures. And I actually know a few people that did, and they got some great pictures, and I just never got it.
I'll back it up. Is there anywhere you wouldn't go?
anywhere? Chernobyl. No way. I thought of it and I'm like, nope, I'm not going to be radiated just to get a couple pictures, you know? Recently I actually got into a little tip with the police in NOLA because I wanted to go to the abandoned Six Flags and I had paid $150 for a captain of a police to come with me and escort me. And they basically, on the day of, said, I'm sorry, somebody canceled the reservation. And I said, I'm sorry? Who canceled the reservation? And she's like, oh, I don't know. And when I said, please, you know, I would like to go, and, you know, I had made this reservation. I think that it's, you know, I could do some good pictures. I won't post them publicly. And they were just very adamant about not letting me go, yet they let somebody go and do a commercial over there. And so I wonder if it was just a matter of money.
Who's keeping us out of Marine Stadium?
Who's keeping? I don't think anybody. I mean, I believe that right now there's security.
Yeah, there's security there.
I don't know who's keeping it. I don't know.
But here's the deal,
Mhm.
and I was just on the internet this morning talking about it. The problem is they've got security there. Security tells you, oh no, you've got a professional camera. You can take pictures with a cell phone, but you can't take it with a professional camera.
Right, like what's the difference?
No, yeah, keep a scan. All right. They won't let you, I mean, even from the outside, you can't do it. Really? Okay? Here's what I'm thinking. And I voiced my opinion to that effect. What I think it is some photographer, a professional photographer, has gotten some kind of an exclusive to do a before and after shoot in there, and he's gotten into somebody's ear, and they're actually keeping the rest of us out because he wants the exclusive. He wants, and I'm saying he, it could be a she.
Right.
Was it
And
you?
I don't.
Was
no.
it?
I wish. Actually, I took pictures of Marine Stadium. It's actually on my website. In 2004.
I'll tell you, I've been in there before, but I'm
Didn't they start fixing it up though and it got really pretty?
They haven't started anything.
Oh,
Nothing's been,
they're supposed to fix it
it's
up.
just, yes, they're supposed to. There's like $20 million or something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, big money.
Where'd all that money go?
Yeah.
Oh, my
Same place the $20 million went for the Coconut Grove Playhouse.
Right. Oh, that's another one. To answer your question, that's another one I'd love to go to, but they have that one on lockdown. That one's big lockdown. There's no way to get in on that one. I've looked. I have
There was a
looked
big
everywhere.
article
Any other
in the
questions?
Miami Herald
Yes.
about the Marine Stadium just the other day. Maybe it was Sunday.
To
the
be
Monday,
honest,
very recently.
I didn't really think anybody cared, and because I had my website up for a really long time, and honestly, to tell you the truth, I've always done these pictures for me. I like going there. I like experiencing it. I like having that memory. I like knowing about the places. I like remembering them. I'm a big memory hog. You know, that's why I'm a photographer, I think, you know. And when I started doing this book was because they asked me to do this book. Like, they literally sent me an email. Do you want to do a book? And I was like, yes. You know? Heck yes. You know? So I think that's where that came from. But I think, you know, I always knew I'd do a book, but I wasn't going to go out and beg for it. You know? Any other questions? Yes.
How many times have you been arrested, and what were the consequences?
0.
I knew it was the answer was 0. Something about jokes.
So I actually joke about this, and I put it in my book. I just didn't go into major detail, but I have this thing called the Jedi mind trick, and so I'll tell you a funny story. So I go to abandoned China. I'm sorry. What's this place called again? Nope. Drawing a blank. It's Splendid China. Thank you. All right. So I go to Splendid China. So it was this theme park in the middle of Orlando that had been completely abandoned. It was supposed to show how splendid China was, right? And it really was a beautiful theme park. It had like the big Buddha. I have actually a print of the big Buddha in my house that it's got the Joker face. Somebody had drawn the Joker face, and it's like, I'm talking about, like, it was a Buddha. God, it was as big as this building. I mean, you know, it was a ginormous Buddha. So we're going in there, and I'm with my friend Denise, who's the one that filmed the documentary, right? And then I'm with another friend of mine who's on a skateboard, right? And I had specifically said, don't take the skateboard. But he didn't listen to me. So anyways, things will not be mentioned. So then, I am kind of like a cat that I can kind of ninja around places, you know, and it was funny because I was wearing like these hot pink pants with like a shirt that said photography is not a crime. I don't know if you guys know Carlos Miller, but he actually does a lot of like photographer rights and stuff like that. And it said photography is not a crime with like a big old
camera.
It's
a camera.
Yeah, no, it's
a
camera,
Polaroid.
no, but, excuse me.
It's a lens.
It's a lens, but it looks like a badge, a cop badge.
With
Anyways,
like a little.
So I'm inside this theater that they had there. Where they were going there to watch, I guess, performances. And I'm literally standing. I'm standing on this like stage, you know. So I mean, for sure, somebody comes in through the door, which I would say was like over there, right? You'd see me, right? But in my mind, I started thinking, oh my God. Oh, and I had already seen like the Escalade like driving around, but I wasn't with Denise and my friend at that time. I was by myself at that moment. So I'm like literally standing there. I've got like this huge Nikon camera, hot pink pants, and this black shirt, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm going, I'm not here. I don't exist. I don't exist. I don't exist. I'm not here. The guy literally does this. He goes, he looks. He comes inside. He looks. And I'm standing on the stage, right? He looks. He looks, because they already knew that we had breached their thing, you know? And he just walks back out. So I'm like, yes, it worked again, because this isn't the first time this has happened, but this was the one that I should have gotten caught. Well, and I did end up getting caught, but it wasn't my fault. So then we go out, and then here comes my friend on his little skateboard, and somebody, like one of the people I guess heard, radioed the other person, and there came the Escalade. And right there, Denise is carrying like this huge bag with all these cameras, you know? And we were just like, okay, show's over, you know? So we basically just like sat there and I started crying. I was like, please, you have to help us. You don't understand, I was doing this just to like get the history of it, and we're filming a documentary, and I have a daughter, and the whole thing, and then, thank God, the lady called the owner, and the owner said, all right, just let them go. And then the lady goes, you know, but there's a cop sitting right over there, and if you pass that cop, it's not my problem if that person arrests you. And I was like, okay, we'll take our chances. So she lets us go, and we're walking out, and I'm like, both of you, Jedi mind trick right now. And I'm like, do not think anything except for the words, I do not exist. So we all walk out, we pass the cop's there, like on the laptop, we keep on, bye. And those are some of the most coolest pictures I have, you know? So it's like, okay, why should I be threatened? Why should my life be threatened by cops or arrests? When I'm literally, that place doesn't exist anymore. It was bulldozed 4 months later. Nobody else has photos like mine, because nobody else had a lens like mine. So then what? You know? It's like, that's what upsets me about this whole thing, and that's kind of why I wanted to talk to everybody, because it's upsetting. I am not a thug, you know? I was literally just there taking pictures. I did not deface the property. I did not do anything at all. You know, I took my pictures, they're awesome pictures, and I left. How is that a crime? Photography is not a crime. Straight up. Mic drop.
So how would you differentiate or define photography versus trespassing.
Okay, so trespassing, I believe so. When you're trespassing, right? And it is a form of trespassing, right? And I've tried to do it legally, right? Like Noah.
You did, yes.
And I just feel like if I get nowhere when I do it like that. So I've learned to just not do it like that because it's really obnoxious. But what would define it? There is no definition. It's just that I'm not doing anything illegal. When I go in, I'm actually, you know what they say, the whole thing of like, leave only footsteps, you know, say nothing. Right. Take only pictures. I've always believed in that ideal, whether I'm in nature, whether I'm in an abandoned place, whether I'm at a friend's house, you know. I think it's an ideal that we all live by, and all urban explorers go by this motto. And if they don't, they're not an urban explorer. They're a wannabe, they're a poser, you know? And it's straight up. And so I feel like if we've, and I mean, there's like a coda that we have to go by. And even, I remember when I first was introduced to like UER Canada, like there was literally a thing that I had to read and sign my initials in at the bottom saying that I would not hurt these places, I would not steal from these places, I would not, you know? So there's like specific things that you have to go by. There's laws that we have within ourselves as artists, as photographers, as historians, in order not to create that type of environment where we're just creating or we're fueling the fires, you know, in the eyes of the law. Right. You know? And I've been asked that a lot of times, you know, and how, don't you think, there was a lady that asked me one time on CNN, don't you think that you should be considering the people that own these places? And I'm like, the whole point is that they're abandoned.
Yeah.
There is no people. That's the whole point.
And if I may add, it's a way of honoring the memory in a way. I totally understand that when you're, and I'm also, you know, quote unquote, a trespasser.
Right. I'm so happy to see, yeah, and also, you know, I'm
I
actually,
don't do that.
Wink, wink.
Never joined a group that would accept me as a member.
oh, really? Why?
It's an old Groucho Marx.
Oh, right on.
Never joined a club that would
That I accept
accept
you as a member?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually left that group a long time ago, but, you know, when I was my own, but.
Photography is not a crime?
No, we are, you know, urban exploration and the whole thing. But, you know, I kind of just do it on my, you know, because then after a while, you do it on your own. So, any other questions? No, I think we're done now. So, I will be here signing books if anybody bought any, and if not, you know, you can talk to me, ask me any questions, but, all right? Thank you.
How can I end
Folks, don't forget, we do have both versions of the book available.